Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me today. This is just going to be a video on the GARMIN Etrex 32x. You'll see me using this. I call it Gary. Used it on the last 3 or 4 videos. Well, I want to explain from the start, this is not a technical instruction video. If you're looking for advice on how to use the Garmin, please go and consult one of the many other videos. There's some great people out there who've done some great work going through step by step how to use the Garmin, how to get the most out of it. That's not my goal today. My goal is simply to explain why I'm using it now and why I would recommend it for anyone doing long distance hiking. So off you go if that's what you're looking for. If not, stick with me. I'm just going to take you through my motivations for getting it and a few positives and negatives, as I always do in these reviews. So straight off the bat, my main navigational means, if you watch my videos, is primarily a paper map. I never leave home on a trail without the map, and even if I'm doing multi-day hikes, I'll have multiple maps all folded and bundled in my pack. The temptation has been there to ditch that in favour of just tech. That's not a good idea at all. I always have my backups, and my backups are created on the OS Maps app. I've done a video on how I do that. So this is a 1:25 scale Land Ranger, printed out, and the trail is already on there using the app. It's in a blue line, you can't really see it on the video. So I've got that, I've got the direction I'm going in marked in with pen, because it doesn't clearly tell you which way you're going in a circular route. And then it's been laminated. These are all affordable things. My printer was £35, the laminator was £30. Paper, ink, probably the ink's the most expensive. All affordable, all doable, rather than carrying a massive OS map that you're going to have to graffiti over. These, when I finish with them, I box them up and keep them for future reference. That's my primary navigational tool. That's my backup if anything goes wrong. But that's my main thing. And I backed that up originally using the iPhone with the OS Maps app. But what I was finding was, number one, massive battery drain, especially that I want to use Live 360 for my family to track where I am in case of an emergency. So I wanted to be able to put the phone away because social media, emails and texts were distracting me, and it got to the point where I was on a fell, enjoying God's creation, enjoying the scenery, and then taking a phone call from my wife, something trivial, no emergency. And I just thought to myself, that's not why I'm out here, to be on call 24/7. We want to be up in those hills, we want to be out in the middle of nowhere, enjoying the moment, enjoying what's around us without being distracted by the world, which is determined to pull us down and trip us up with this kind of technology that should be for good use but can get so easily abused. So what I wanted to do was put the mobile phone away, stop navigating with that, but still enjoy the same confidence that a GPS system gives you. So I did some research and I came up with the Garmin. And that is mainly why I decided to get one. I was very nervous at first, wondering if it was going to live up to its reputation, because I saw some videos and we're going to put it on the table straight away. It does look like, on the screen, I'll show you now, the display of a Nokia 3210. I'm going to explain why that's a big deal for me, for a good way, but we've got to get past that. I'm sorry iPhone users, I'm sorry smartphone users, but the technology of the old days, I'm old enough to remember, had one thing in its favour: it worked. And the problem is, in the past, a device was a device for one main purpose. We didn't try and turn it into an all singing, all dancing smart device. If you wanted a navigation system, it was a navigation system. End of story. You didn't have to play games on it, you didn't answer text messages, phone calls, track your steps, answer emails. So technology was simple, but it didn't break, or very rarely broke or let you down. So I love the fact that this has gone back to that. So when you look at the display, it's very primitive and basic. Even the menus, you use the little joystick on the front to navigate. The menus look basic, they look like they're straight out of the 1990s. Once you get past that, and get over that, you've got a brilliant device. What I find with this, after taking it out on 3 or 4 trails, is it does what it says on the tin. And you can't get that these days. And I think this is why GPS systems are quite popular. simple menu navigation. You can change the menus around, which is what I've done, so that when I press the menu button to navigate, my menus that I want are prioritised at the top. The ones I don't use have been removed. The sequence that the menus move through, I've changed so that I get my map straight away with 2 boxes at the top. You'll see on this picture coming up. One's my mileage walked and one's how much miles I've got left. I mean, how much more could I ask? So it's tracking my mileage, it's tracking my elevation. You can track all sorts of different information, average speeds, average times, blah, 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 blah. Perfect. What more can I ask for? Yes, the screen itself is pretty basic, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Less to distract. So I've been out 3 or 4 times with this and I've had no issues. Another great selling point is, when I take the cover off the back, AA batteries. Fantastic idea. Don't have to charge that. Don't have to worry about charging a device. If the batteries run out, I can get some fresh from a petrol station, a shop, a corner shop. Does not matter whatsoever. I can carry spares in my pack. I don't have to charge this at the end of the day using my power pack. You get about 25 hours, which is what I've experienced. But they do recommend you buy some lithium ones. Eve has a setting on the menu to boost the power for lithium batteries. So there we are. This is my primary reason why I got one. So after 3 or 4 trips out, you'll see on the Ullswater Way and on Coniston, I think I used it in Morecambe as well. You'll find me, I've got it clipped to a Velcro patch here that you can buy. It's a bit expensive for what it is, and you've got to replace the lanyard because it's a ridiculous design. But it's the only one out there. So what I can do is I can just have that there on my rucksack strap. Off it comes on a string, and definitely have a lanyard because I've dropped it several times. I can quickly press the little joystick in, the display will come up and it pinpoints exactly where I am. Stick it back on. So it's done what I wanted it to do, which was to replace the mobile phone, replace the distraction, and it'll also track my mileage. So I'm going to hit you with the positives, the negatives, the pros and the cons. Straight off the back. Positive number 1. The tracking data. I love the tracking data. Primarily it records your actual walked mileage, which I like. And you can use this for vehicles as well. It's not necessarily just for walkers. You can use this in a car as a navigation thing, though I wouldn't like to. I wouldn't like to be playing with this while I'm driving. But as far as walking, it records the mileage perfectly well. It also tracks the data to a GPX file that you can then export back into OS Maps, which I've done. It worked really well. So if you went off exploring or you wanted to see where you got lost or something like that on a trail, you can re-upload it, export it to the OS Maps, and then see all the squiggly lines where you've been. I've done it once for the Ullswater Way just to see how accurate it was. Perfect. Followed the map perfectly. There was no sort of like deviation. So yeah, I've got this tracking data. I can track how much of the trail is left, which I cannot stress how valuable that is. That when you're on a exported GPX trail to this device, it will then tell you where I've put it in the top right hand corner, exactly how many miles are left when you're on the trail. Now that brings me to another point. If you step off the trail that you've created and put into a GPX file and download it into the device, it goes a bit funny with the mileage. Obviously, if you're not on the trail, it can't accurately tell you how many miles are left. So at the moment, I haven't figured out what it does, but it obviously adds mileage up. But I don't know if that's sort of like it plotting its own way back, literally from where you're stood, how many miles to the end. So the first time I used it, I got quite nervous, thinking, oh, have I botched it? Am I going to get an inaccurate reading? So when I diverted off but came back to the trail further on, so maybe like half a mile on from where I was, it simply re-navigated itself, reset and went, right, you're back on trail. You've got your mileage left that's accurate. So yeah, you can walk off trail. Maybe you go to a shop or a cafe, but as soon as wherever you pick up the trail again, it will then reset and tell you. Well, it doesn't reset, but it tells you, goes back to where you would be and how many miles you are left. So that's a great feature, telling me how many miles of the trail I've got left accurately. And that's been a big deal in some of the videos. Second positive, I can put the phone away. Phone goes in my bag, or it's at least just on my hip so I can take pictures because I still use my iPhone. Haven't decided whether to get a proper camera. The iPhone seems to be doing a good job. But I'm not as distracted as I was, which is good news. What it also does, because you don't have as much detail to look at on here, it pushes me back onto this, which is a good thing. So if I get to a point where I'm like, okay, where am I at? I want to see if there's anything nearby. I can now pull the map out and just liaise with this. So you can zoom in and out of the map. And then I get the detail from my paper map. So that's going to be re-familiarised with using the paper map, but not to the point where I'm distracted by it, which is great. I think that's a perfect balance for me. So I'm a bit more reliant, as I should be, on the paper map, but this is just my guide, my instructor, so to speak. As I said before, another positive is the batteries. That's invaluable. I can just take a couple of AA's with me. No, I'm not going to have any issues. Negatives. Let me get straight to the negatives. The downside to this kind of device is it requires a bit more tech savviness. Is that even a word? Tech savviness? To operate. So it's very slow when connected to either my Apple tablet or a PC laptop. I tried both. It's a USB connection. You can put a micro SD card in, but if you put anything over 16 gig size card in, it goes behind the batteries, by the way. Took me a while to find it. Take the batteries out, there's a SD card slot there. Anything over 16 gig it won't recognise. But as I'm only doing I don't store all my trails on this device. I just put the ones in that I intend to use. And I've never had any memory issues without an SD card. But when I connect it to either device, it's very slow to recognise. It's very slow to manoeuvre through menus because there's no real menu, it's a file system. There's no app for this either. And so I've got to be patient, take my time. I also found that the OS app for exporting GPXs is no good. That's a general rule. It doesn't seem to be any good. It doesn't export enough information. I've got to go to the browser, go through the OS Maps app, but through the browser, if that makes any sense. So I'm going direct to the source and export it from there. And then it gives me the perfect GPX to go on there and with all the information. I found if I use the app, it was missing data, important information. So I've got to do that. So it requires a lot more technological involvement in prep. I don't mind that, but you might find that a bit frustrating. I'm very disappointed there's no app that will connect directly to this and help you do it. If there is, please let me know in the comments below. Yeah, so that's two negatives. Third, there's just a lack of detail on the map itself. It would be great if the Land Ranger map appeared on here. It doesn't. Maybe it's not a negative. Maybe it's a good thing. Throws me back on the paper map. But when you're looking at the screen, as you can see from the pictures I've been putting up, there's not much detail. It tells you high and low points. You can put waypoints in. I haven't quite used that feature yet. Like I said, it's not a guide on how to. I've not unlocked a lot of the features yet. And that's all I've got in the negatives. Accuracy wise, it's just as accurate as the iPhone for position. And I even if it wasn't, I would still be sort of like, still be sold on that tracking data. And I've exported that out, like I said. You can save it as a file, so it'll tell you the time you started the trail, how long it took you, all your average date. You can save that as a file as well and keep that record if that interests you. So that's it. That's all I've got to say. I know I've been a bit long-winded, which is perfectly normal for the pilgrim hiker. I hope this information helps you make a decision on whether you want to use this for hiking. The future for me, I'm going to carry on using it. I have no issues so far. I haven't tried it on a multi-day hike yet, but again, I don't see why that would be an issue. The only feature I've got to get used to using is that if I want to track per day, I need to reset my tracking data, otherwise it just carries on rolling. So if you wanted to record the mileage and the time for the whole 5, 6, 7 days, you can just leave it tracking and it will do. As you change the batteries, it doesn't lose any of its data, which I did the other day on Coniston, I think. But it will just keep rolling. But that means it will also roll if you're driving home and you forgot to pause it. So I started a trail and it said I'd already recorded 83 miles. So remember to reset it whenever you want. and save it whenever you can. Which will be really interesting to do a whole day's hike, see how many miles and average walking speeds and all that good stuff. So yeah, I can't see myself ditching it. So far it's been absolutely fantastic. It's done exactly what I wanted it to do. Yeah, I hope that helps. That's all I've got to say, guys. Hopefully in future videos you'll see me using it more and perhaps using different features. And yeah, there we go. So Garmin Etrex 32x version. See what you think, guys. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time back on the trail.